So for more on how MTN stands to benefit from the easing of sanctions against Iran, I'm joined by Kuseni Dlamini, who's a business commentator. Kuseni, thanks for your time this evening.
Much. It's great to be here.
So good news then for MTN.
It's fantastic news for MTN. Iran is a very important part of the MTN business, as we know, but I would dare say it's also not just fantastic news for MTN, but great news for South Africa as well. There were issues around our oil imports from Iran, and I think those issues are going to sort of slowly dissipate by now. And other companies such as Sasol and Standard Bank have historically done business in Iran. So I would want to argue it's good news for South Africa Inc. in general.
For any other business that has that kind of exposure. All right, but let's talk about the impact that sanctions have. I mean, obviously for the MTN case, they couldn't repatriate something like $1 billion in their own accumulated dividends. So that money sitting there, which could have been used for further investment.
The impact is very adverse and very uncomfortable, not just in terms of that, but in terms of thinking about growing and expanding the operations in that country in the context of sanctions. That was something that constrained many South African investors as well as other investors that are aligned to the U.S. or don't want to upset the U.S. Because if you're a country that wants to keep good relations with the U.S., it was almost untenable to continue to do business with Iran. So this is really something that is, I'll argue, that is very much welcomed.
What are the lessons in this for companies that do business in areas where there are geopolitical tensions? What should businesses learn from this?
I think it all boils down to the issue of assessing and analyzing risk and putting in place appropriate mitigating measures to mitigate that risk. And it also goes to the issue of being in a position to anticipate where political trends may go in difficult markets such as Iran and other emerging markets that are usually troubled. It requires a lot of work by executives to be able to operate in those environments. I know that the knee-jerk reaction or the default position by some is to stay away from such markets, but as we know from the very story of MTN, it's been successful by really venturing in uncharted territories.
Yeah, and I was going to say the difficulty for them, of course, is that they are a big player in the Middle East. They're in Syria as well, and we know what's going on in that particular market. So how do you balance that, the risk and reward in those difficult markets?
It normally goes high risk, high reward. So if you can be able to mitigate the risk and still operate in line with your principles and your ethical accountability obligations, I think shareholders will be comfortable with that. The key thing is not to find yourself doing things that you cannot live with when you wake up and they're on the front page of a leading newspaper.
And that's one thing you often don't want for the wrong reasons.
You don't want
for the wrong reasons. So the Iranian investment, I mean, do you see MTN sticking there?
I see MTN sticking there, and I see other companies as well looking at the opportunity. And I think this breakthrough by President Obama is historic. It's very significant, and I dare say it's likely to be not reversible. Again, it depends who wins the next presidential elections in the US, which are coming up soon. But I think for a long time, US presidents have grappled with unlocking this challenge, and I think credit to President Obama in terms of his diplomatic capabilities, which is deployed so well to try and find a solution. It's a very difficult and intractable problem. We saw what problems it caused with Israel, and we saw Benjamin Netanyahu running to Washington before the elections to try and influence U.S. foreign policy within the U.S., something that is very unusual.
We'll leave it there. Thanks for your time today. That was business commentator Kuseni Dlamini.